Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Nice to see you early in the morning. That's great. Thank you.
Good morning, Colonel Mishra. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Hi,
Rajit bhai. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ruchin. Good morning.
Good morning, Rashmi Bhai. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, long time after long time talking to you.
Yes, that's true.
Good morning. I am Rotarian Parag Potnis from Badlapur Industrial Area.
Welcome, Parag ji. Good morning.
Yeah, I am Nitin. I am Nitin's brother-in-law.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah. His elder sister is my wife.
Okay.
So I am joining you.
Most welcome. We feel blessed to have you in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. In fact, yesterday I requested Nitin ji, if you can extend the invitation to friends and relatives, even to some Rotarians and
Yeah. That is being a Rotarian. He sent first invitation to me.
Yeah.
And I accepted it gladly.
Yeah. In fact, he is going to speak on a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Wildlife, and it is quite new. And we are going to get a lot of information on that.
How much interesting he can talk.
No,
I am
he
the
speaks,
better judge. I think so.
he speaks very well, I know.
Yeah. Definitely.
And top of it, he is very meticulous.
Yeah. Yes.
And very systematic.
आज तुम्हारा वन लाइनर नहीं आया.
Should we start the meeting? Yeah, we should wait 5 minutes more.
We can start.
We can start?
Yes.
Okay. So, very good morning, friends. Hearty welcome to Nitin ji and all Rotarians. And Selke ji, he is from India Post. He is very senior officer, so I requested him to join. So, Parag ji and Selke ji, you are most welcome to join early in the morning.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to mute all
You.
and request you can unmute if when you are expected to speak. So please remain in mute mode till meeting is over. It's already 8:30, so we can start the proceeding. Meeting call to order. Please rise for national anthem. Jai Hind and very good morning to all. Before proceeding, I have three announcements. One is regarding Sanjeevani Riverside flagship. So last Saturday we had second session, and I am glad to share with you all. This talk was by our passport officer, and the topic was very interesting. That was value and entrepreneurship based on Samyak Shiksha, which is complete education. I'm glad to share with you total 288 teachers and students joined and the feedback received from them is quite encouraging. And this was the second session, because first session was taken by group captain Ashwini Kumar Bhaku, that was on emotional wellness. So continuing on second, and I am very happy our Riversiders I have also joined on that day. So share the experience, how it was. I would like to invite Rotarian Milind Patil ji over to Milind to share the experience of Sanjeevani Riverside flagship talk on last Saturday.
It was indeed a pleasure to listen to the speaker imparting life skills to the teachers, both from privileged backgrounds and those from underprivileged backgrounds. I congratulate Umesh Jalanji and Colonel Ji for this venture, and I hope that our my colleagues would join in large numbers for the future meetings. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My second announcement is regarding the program. The program for the month, calendar and program of the month October is already out. And you all know the next speaker is Army Officer General Amil Kumar Sori. And he is going to speak on a another interesting topic, and that topic is, conflict management based on Panchatantra. And Panchatantra, is a very famous, novel or ancient literature which is written on so many things, but management is one. And 25th we are having our club fellowship. So that is again, that is going to be hosted by supported by Prerna and Jhelum. Jhelum is going to host this. So you can imagine last fellowship she was supporting role, and this time she is in lead role. So that is one thing. And on 31st, that is Rashtriya Ekta Divas. So we are going to celebrate Rashtriya Ekta Divas, and we have a musical tribute to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. I will request you all to please join. Not taking much time, now I would invite Rotarian Prerna Gaikwad for her secretariat announcement. Over to Prerna.
Very good morning to everyone once again. We have celebrations this week, I think a lot of them. 9th of October is Anne Sujata Patil's birthday. 11th is Milind Patil's birthday. 11th again, we have Rachit Relan's birthday, and Anshul Goyal on the 11th again. So here's wishing everyone a very happy birthday in advance from all of us at the Rotary Club of Pune Riverside. Colonel, back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for formal introduction and welcome of our today's keynote speaker, Nitin Kakotkar ji. Nitin is good friend, and it's like we are like a family. I want to share with you, we have a Society of Civil Servants Pune. So that is that is a platform where we all meet and greet all civil service officer, and Nitin Bhai is very active in that. So thank you, Nitin ji, for joining us today for your talk. So to do for that formal welcome, I would like to invite Rotarian Bharat Nayan, BOD member, Education, Skill Development and Special Project. So over to Rotarian Bharat Nayan. Unmute yourself, Bharat Bhai. Just unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Nitin, hi. How are you? Mr. Kakotkar, how are you?
Hello and namaste.
Namaste.
To everyone.
See, I can start introducing you by saying how many medals you won, when you got, which areas you went, how many training institutes you set up, blah, 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 blah. But I will give a very different introduction of Mr. Kakotkar. Mr. Kakotkar was the #1 man in the forest area as the chief conservator of forests. Now, when we talk of conservator of forests, all of us think wildlife. But Nitin took the understanding of saying that there is a man, there is an animal, and there are employees of the forest in the ecosystem of the forest. And interestingly, he was one of the few people who took a lot of initiatives in terms of the man-animal conflict in the forest life, which most forest conservators never did. Another interesting part about his background is that towards the last part, or the second half of his career, he was transferred to headquarters and was instrumental in setting up multiple training institutes, the course material of which is still very, very popular, used. Nitin has written a very interesting book along with a photographer called The Untold Story. Whilst The Untold Story focuses on Tadoba, where he had a long stint, the interesting part is it talks about the initiatives he took to get sustenance and income and employment for the tribals who live in the forest, contributing to a positive sustenance of the man-animal conflict. He was very well known to reaching out to the forest guards in the most remotest places to celebrate Diwali sweets with them, etc. He was known as a human face in an environment where animals and humans have to be both taken care of. That was the legacy which he has left behind in the bureaucracy. The irony is that we are talking to him in COVID times, where previously animal was caged in a forest, we are now caged online, and we have the conservator of forest talking to us in our cage, our forest. Welcome, Nitin. Thank you for being in the club.
Thank you. Very well said. Totally agree. So over to Nitinji. Yeah.
Can't hear you.
Nitinji?
Now, is it okay now?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Am I audible to everyone? Could you just raise your hands?
Very well, very well.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Bharatji, for a very unique way of introducing me, and I'm grateful to all the good words that have been spoken about. Now, what I'm going to tell you is wildlife management, and it's very difficult to rush through it in a short span, but I'll try to do my best, and you will excuse me for the speed at which I may be going. So let me share the screen first of all. Is it okay? Is the screen
yes.
visible to everyone? Fine.
Yes.
So let me begin. Thank you very much, Colonel Mishra Saab, and thank you for all the Rotarians and others who have joined, because I know it's early morning and it's a difficult time to sit before a PC and get into a Zoom meeting. So what I'm going to tell you about is the story of Maharashtra's wildlife, or Maha wildlife as I call it, and the story, So as you know, the state is quite big, and we have a wide variety. Actually, in wildlife parlance, if we say, we have different biogeographic zones in the state, and that's why the diversity of wild animals, wild plants is very high, right from the flamingo in the western part of Maharashtra, which is also very near to you at Ujjaini and Bigwan, as well as in the Thane Creek area, to the wild buffalo to the extreme east in Gadchiroli district, where we have the presence of wild buffalo. And it's there are only 3 states in the country which have this wild buffalo. We have some wild buffalo in Assam, the majority of it, and then we have some in Chhattisgarh and across the border into Maharashtra. Apart from that, we have a wide range of wild life. And if you see this picture, it would depict, right from the wolves. Again, very near to Pune, you do see wolves, and then you have the forest owlet. Now, this is what you would normally see in the jungles or near your habitation is the spotted owlet. And this is a forest owlet. It was thought to be extinct. But in 1997, after a gap of about more than 100 years, this was rediscovered near Toranmal. which is in Dhule district, and now we have seen that it is present also in Tansa Sanctuary in Thane district, as well as in Melghat, which is Amravati district. You would be surprised कि हाथी क्यों दिखा रहे हैं, तो हाथी इसलिए दिखा रहे हैं कि हाथी भी है महाराष्ट्र में. Sindhudurg and Kolhapur districts do have elephant presence since the last about more than 15 years now. And in fact, last year we had 2 elephants crossing in from Chhattisgarh into Gadchiroli district and then into Gondia district. Fortunately, they left for Madhya Pradesh and they have not returned till now. It was last June, so now it's more than a year now. But these are also present. And then we have, of course, the Great Indian Bustard, which you see to the extreme right of your screen, which is also called as the Maldok, and it's one of the biggest birds that we have. A very rare bird, to be very precise. And then you have the vultures. Now vultures, आपके बचपन में शायद आपने देखा होगा कि बहुत सारी जगह पे vultures दिखते थे, गांव के बाहर भी दिखते थे. लेकिन after last few years, we have seen that there was a rapid decline, and this decline was because of excessive use of a medicine called diclofenac, which is a drug which was a painkiller used in veterinary medicine quite a lot. It's still used in human medicine, but in the veterinary medicine, diclofenac was used, and that led to a massive decline in the vulture population. Fortunately, now it is slowly picking up because of various ex situ conservation measures. That is, we had vulture breeding centers. Now, if we talk about Maharashtra, we have a protected area, which is a sanctuary, or rather Tadoba, which is as old as 1955. And it was notified as far way back as 1955, along with Kanha National Park in Madhya Pradesh. And we have another protected area, which is the Tilari Conservation Reserve, which is notified as early as late as 2020. So we have n number of PAs ranging right from Malvan, which is the sea level, which is a marine protected area, to the Kalsubai Harishchandragarh Sanctuary, which is the highest peak in Maharashtra, which is around 1600 meters. And therefore, we safeguard not only the tiger, but also the wild buffalo and flamingo. And right from corals, if you see Maharashtra coastline, we do have corals and the mangroves, 2 rock paintings in this country. Now, in this state, we also had shikar blocks in the past, and we have a lot of religious abode. Another PA or protected area very near to Pune is the Bhima Shankar, which is one of the 12 Jyotirlings, and we have a Bhima Shankar sanctuary. And just to remind all of you, our state animal is the giant squirrel, which is also known as Shekru locally, and that is found extensively in Bhima Shankar. So next time you go to Bhima Shankar for darshan, you may also ask for where is this giant squirrel to be found. And even in Mahabaleshwar, if you go very near to that joint, which is very famous for eating, you can see the giant squirrel sometimes there. And we have Lonar crater, which is one of the oldest craters in the whole world, and which is of celestial origin, one can say. That is also a sanctuary. 2 man-made areas like Sagreshwar, which is near Sangli, which was made as a protected area, and it was the animals there were introduced. So we roughly have about 9,500 square kilometers area under 62 protected areas, which is sanctuaries, national parks, or what we call as conservation reserves. So it is approximately 3% of the total geographical area of the state. So different habitats we cover, because when you talk of protecting different types of animals and plants, you have to look for different types of areas. So right from semi-evergreen to dry deciduous forests to grasslands. And the other interesting fact about Maharashtra is that we have a protected area in Sanjay Gandhi National Park, around which the human density is more than 25,000 people per square kilometers, to another protected area in Kolamarka, which is Sironcha, Gadchiroli district, where the density is only about 74. We have the highest number of tiger reserves in the state, along with Madhya Pradesh. So we have 6 tiger reserves in the state. In Western Maharashtra, of course, we have one tiger reserve, which is the Sahyadri Tiger Reserve, consisting of Koina National Park and Chandoli National Park and Koina Sanctuary. And other 5 tiger reserves are, of course, in Vidarbha. Then it is one of the 3 states, as I already said, which has the endangered wild buffalo. One of the most popular tiger destinations. पहले आप सिर्फ कान्हा का नाम सुनते थे या कॉर्बेट का नाम सुनते थे, लेकिन अभी if you have seen, it is more of Tadoba, which is first on the list of people who are interested in seeing tigers. So this turnaround has been brought about in the last 20 years or so. We have, fortunately, when we talk about the human face, we have one of the best compensation schemes for human death. I would not say it is compensation. I would call it more of ex gratia payment, where we pay rupees 15 lakhs for a human death because of wild animal attack. We have an excellent rehabilitation policy, and we have village eco development, that is ecologically sustainable development in the villages, for which the funding comes from the forest department. We have been declaring protected areas even in recent times. So many states are now slightly apprehensive because they say कि protected area declare करने से developmental activities पे काफी असर होता है. But our state is one where we keep on doing it, and we probably have a national only state where we have a national park in the vicinity of a metro. That is the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, which is right in Mumbai, surrounded by Mumbai and Thane, which is a highly populated area. Now we have something called the Special Tiger Protection Force, which is, it's created basically for protection. And out of the 8 in the whole country, Maharashtra has 4 Special Tiger Protection Force. So that is a big achievement for us, because that is how we try and protect our tigers to the maximum extent possible. So this is a picture of the Thane Creek. So we have this in the background, you have the hills of New Mumbai, and in the foreground you have the flamingos, and in the middle you have the mangroves. So that is the kind of diversity that we have. What have we done for the coastal areas? Now, again, Maharashtra is unique in the sense that we have we have a separate mangrove cell, which takes care of the entire coastal biodiversity of the state. And now, when we put restrictions on the people, there have to be livelihood activities which have to go together with that. And therefore, what has been done is a lot of livelihood activities in the form of cage culture, oyster farming, mussel farming, mud crab farming, ornamental fish rearing, and ecotourism. You could, there are very the capacity building. If we talk about, you have ladies who have never probably uttered a botanical name, but there are ladies there now who can identify 7 or 8 species of mangrove vegetation. Even for a person like me, I would know maybe 1 or 2 mangrove species, but they would go on listing about 7 to 8 for the tourists. So that is the way in which they get employment, and that is the way they talk about protection of these areas. So as I said, we have the Harishchandragarh Sanctuary, which is the which has the highest peak in the state. That is the Kalsubai, 1600 meters above mean sea level. And we have a 56,000-year-old Lonar crater, which was recently in the news because of the red algal bloom, and it had turned red a few months back in the late summers this year. And as I said, we have a small, right in the south of Maharashtra, we have now notified recently about 3,000 hectares of the Tilari Conservation Reserve, which is a very high biodiversity rich area of the Western Ghats. These are the wild dogs which you see across Maharashtra, and these are also known as whistling hunters, because when they chase their prey, they really communicate with each other through a sound which is like a whistle. So they are also known as the whistling hunters. And these are the wild buffalo. आप बहुत लोग बोलेंगे कि इसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है, ये तो भैंस है. तो ये भैंस है, लेकिन ये भैंस अलग टाइप की है, और ये सिर्फ 3 स्टेट्स में पाई जाती है पूरे कंट्री में. And it is very, it's seen only in India, this kind of, this species of buffalo. It is also known as the water buffalo in some areas. Recently, we have a lot of wetlands which are of international importance. And recently, the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, which is an international organization, has recognized Nandur Madhameshwar, which is near Nasik, as a wetland of international importance. So this also recently, this was done in June 2019. Now we also are in the process of notifying or getting notification or designation of Lonar as one of the wetland of international importance. So it's a matter of pride for all of us that we have these kind of areas also, which are recognized internationally. Coming to the tiger, yes, where does the tiger stay? As you know, it is revered in our mythology. It is revered by people even today. Although there are a lot of conflict issues, but still the tiger is still revered, and you will see a lot of small statues of tigers around villages. You will also see some temples dedicated to the tiger. Now, when we talk about the tiger, why do we talk about the tiger as such? Because tiger, is called the umbrella species, in the sense that if you protect the tiger, then all the other animals, plants, everything is under it is protected, because it is at the apex of the food pyramid. So that is why we need to save the tiger. So it's, when we talk about Project Tiger, it is not only about the tiger, it is about all living beings, and each has a place in our life. And that's why it is important to protect every creature on this earth, because we don't know what is the role of that creature in mitigating certain issues. Now, this is where the tiger lives, mostly in central India, which is the dry deciduous forests. And so what are we doing? I mean, this was about the biodiverse richness of our forest, but what do we manage it at all? Is there a necessity to manage it? What are we fighting against? Now, the main thing that we are fighting against is linear development. We all need roads, we need railways, we need canals, we need mining because we need the ore, we need urbanization, but all this leads to what? It leads to habitat and corridor loss. What is a corridor? When you connect one protected area to the other, you have two forest areas, but beech mein kuch bhi nahi hai. So these become isolated populations. When they become isolated populations, there are things like genetic loss which sets in, and there is something called inbreeding which sets in. And when inbreeding sets in, it is very difficult, because the inbreeding would lead to defects that we all know of in many of the species, and ultimately it leads to the loss of the species. So our main issue is that we connect these corridors. Now, how do we connect these corridors? You can't plant a forest between two patches of forest. For example, if I talk about connecting Tadoba to, say, Melghat, or Tadoba to Pench, so what do I do? So I have to protect the areas in between. Wherever there are roads, wherever there are canals, can I think of some mitigation measures? Can the animals pass below the roads? There are examples which I'll come through. Then we have tremendous anthropogenic pressure on the habitat, because as we know, India, in the context of the whole world, we occupy only 2.4% of the geographical area of the world. And on this 2.4% of the geographical area of the world, we are supporting approximately 16% of the world's human population, and also about 16 to 17% of the world's livestock population, that is the cattle population. So naturally, all these things lead to a lot of a lot of pressure on these habitats of the wild animals, and this also leads to habitat degradation and ultimately habitat loss for a lot of animals. Then we do have cases of organized poaching as well as local poaching. As recently we had a talk on electrocution, and then we said, somebody asked why electrocution, why poaching takes place at all, because can't they buy mutton? No, they can't buy mutton, because mutton today is about 600 rupees a kilo, 500 to 600 rupees a kilo. And most of the chicken is, most of the people now don't like to eat chicken, because the taste has, with all the treatment that the chicken gets in the poultry farm, it's no longer tasty. And therefore they go for bush meat, or the animal meat, which is available for maybe about, sometimes even for 80 rupees a kg or 200 rupees a kg maximum. So that's why things like poisoning, electrocution do take place around the protected areas of the state, and this also is a major problem. Now, this is when I talk about connectivity or corridors, this is how it looks. You know, the green areas are the various sanctuaries or national parks in central India that we see, and the red lines that you see are the corridors which have been identified. What are corridors? Which means that some animals have moved in this area to reach the other area. For recently, last year, if you have read, we had a tiger which moved about 2,000 kilometers back and forth, of course. And that set off from a protected area called Tipeshwar, which is near in Yavatmal district on the Telangana border, went into Telangana to a place called Kaval, and then traveled westwards and reached as far as Jnanganga Sanctuary, which is in Buldana. So that is the kind of distance that it covered. It went further on to Ajanta caves. And you would say, how do we know about this? That is because we do radio collaring of a few individuals. And this radio collaring helps us in tracing the movement of an animal. Otherwise, many times it is not visible. So it has walked through agricultural fields now without being noticed by people. So that is the beauty of this animal, that it can walk through areas without getting noticed. So we call it nocturnal connectivity. So there may not be forest in between the two patches, but there is something called nocturnal connectivity when the lights are out, when the agricultural fields are having a crop. So all this leads to connectivity, and these are the corridors that we need to protect. For example, we are talking about the Samruddhi highway, which is going to connect Mumbai to Nagpur, a 700 kilometers access controlled highway. What is the access controlled highway? Nobody can enter the highway from either side unless there is an opening. So what happens to the animals along these 700 kilometers? So we have designed with the MSRDC, we have designed with the help of Wildlife Institute of India, we have designed about 2,000 structures which would be there all along this highway, where wherever there is wild animal presence, there would be some way in which the animals can move through these areas. Then we have pressures of mining, we have pressures of thermal power plants and industrialization. So all this also affects the connectivity. Then we have issues of, because we are mostly dry deciduous forests, there is a lot of leaf litter which falls in the once the rains are over. So around November, we would have our forest full of leaf litter, and the forests are put on fire by people for various different causes. And then these fires spread, although mostly these are ground fires, unlike the fires in California that you may have been hearing about. These are ground fires, but they do burn the leaf litter, and they do harm the ground nesting birds and also the nests of many other mammals. Then we have collection or the dependence of the local people on these forest areas, like we have cattle. As I said, cattle is a big problem. Firewood collection is a major problem again in most of the areas. We have tried to supplement it with LPG cylinders. And then there is moa collection, moa flowers, which are found in summers. These are collected, and all this leads to conflict because encounters with the wild animals. So these are this is just a map showing connectivity between, say, Tadoba and up north into Ghodajari tank. And then right in the center of the slide, if you see, there is a irrigation project which is planned, which is called the Human River project. Now, what happens if it comes? You would say कि थोड़ा सा forest area जाएगा, लेकिन see, it breaks the connectivity between two forested landscapes, and so then the isolation of species takes place, and hence we have to resist such projects, although they are necessary for irrigating a large chunk of land. So it's a compromise, and we have to weigh the benefits and the losses that could happen, and then the government takes a suitable decision. Now, apart from that, let us talk about poaching. Although we have been able to control organized poaching to a fairly good extent because of certain measures that have been taken, but still this threat looms large. And many times these poaching incidents do also take place even now. And as I said, tiger poaching is not only for the skin, but also for the nails, for the bones. And these bones are supposed to have a lot of medicinal value in places like across the border in China and other places. And this has led to a loss of tiger population in many areas. Then electrocution losses, as I said, it's very easy. Most of these electrocution cases, it's not meant for the tiger. It is meant to for bushmeat, like killing wild boar or killing deer, sambar or cheetal. But then accidentally a tiger happens to be happens to get caught in these transmission lines, and therefore this type of visuals we also have to encounter at times. And if you see, there is a mark right across the body which indicates that this was electrocuted. Then we have the railway lines. We all need railway lines. We've all traveled in railway lines. But when these connect or go through the forest areas, we do have issues. Recently, we had again in the news, there was a Akola Khandwa railway line, which is right now a meter gauge line, which is to be converted because all the meter gauge lines in the country are being connected or converted into broad gauge lines. But when it happens, so they said, "Hum to sirf broad gauge karenge, hamara within given width we are going to do it, or right of way we are going to do it." But the issue is that once you convert a meter gauge into a broad gauge, then the frequency of the trains will increase, the speed of the trains will increase, and all this could lead to death of wild animals. And this line goes through the Melghat Tiger Reserve, and many of the villages in Melghat Tiger Reserve have been rehabilitated. So now it is of no use to them. Instead, if they take a loop which is slightly longer by about 40 kilometers, they will not only save the forest, but they would also cater to more people. That is what we are trying to fight out. So let us hope that our view prevails. And the CM right now is very supportive to wildlife conservation, and that is a very good thing. So this is what happens when railway lines go through areas. For example, you see this on the right, you see a leopard cut into half. This happens off and on in the railway lines which do cut across forests. In Uttar Pradesh or Uttarakhand, you have a lot of elephant deaths which happen because of railway lines going through forested areas. Yes, but in spite of all this, is it a very dismal story? No, it is not. Because of the efforts which have been done by the Forest Department through the support of the government, in Maharashtra, the tiger still roars. If we have a 4-yearly estimation of tigers, which is done by Government of India, and in that, if you see, our numbers have increased right from 103 in 2006 to 312 in the latest estimation that was done in 2018. The reports of which came in 2019. So we are now around 300 tigers in this state, which is roughly an increase of 206% in the span of last 12 years. At the national level, the state share has also increased substantially, and in the central Indian landscape, which is one of the major tiger areas, the share has increased from 17.6% in 2006 to 30%. So Maharashtra now has a lot of tigers, and with that, of course, comes the responsibility, because the more the tigers, the more the responsibility that is cast upon us. Then, as I said earlier, that we have a very good relocation package. What is relocation? There are problems for people living in remote villages. They don't have access to education. They don't have access to good medical facilities. Then they don't have access to employment opportunities. So what do? We shift the villages or relocate or rehabilitate them rather to areas of their choice, and they are given land and they are given whatever assets that they had. They are given 4 times the value of those assets plus land, and it's a win-win situation for both. Like the newspaper article says, both tigers and villagers are happy. And now what happens after relocation is that expansive lands become available for as grasslands, which were earlier agricultural fields. There is no disturbance, there is no poaching because of bushmeat. And all this leads to increase in the herbivore population. And obviously when the herbivore population increases, the carnivore population would also increase. In Maharashtra, we have identified about 110 villages right now for relocation, out of which 66 villages we have already relocated. And about 44 villages are yet to be relocated. So as I said, this is a win-win situation. Now what happens? This is a slightly technical thing, but if you see increase in the tiger numbers, where this is Melghat Tiger Reserve, the whole map is the Melghat Tiger Reserve. And if you see the left-hand corner or the encircled area, a lot of villages, about 20 villages from that area were relocated. Now what has happened is, because of that, the polygons that you see, they are the areas which are occupied by one tiger. So these polygon size is very small, which indicates that within a small area, the tiger is getting all the prey which is required for their survival, and hence it can hold, this area can hold more number of tigers because the villages were relocated, because the situation has improved. If you compare to the right-hand side or the top right-hand side of the map, you will see that the polygons are much bigger. Now, why are they bigger? Because the tiger has to move that much more in search of its prey, and because of disturbances. And in that area, villages are still not relocated, or not all villages have been rehabilitated. Once that happens, then you will have a similar position, and we can accommodate more tigers in a smaller area. This is the male. The males have a much larger territory, because the females occupy smaller territories and the males have to move around a lot. So if you again see where the villages have been relocated, even the male has a smaller territory as compared to the areas in the north or the north right corner. There you have two males areas, the pink one and the green one, which has to move around quite a lot to sustain its needs. And that is what happens. This is a win-win situation that I call when you rehabilitate villages. Now, when we talk about mitigation measures, as I said, we need to protect the corridors. How do we protect the corridors? This is one of the mitigation measures, the right-hand side picture that you see, where, this is NH 44, which is the Pench or the Nagpur-Jabalpur highway. If some of you have gone through this highway, you will come across these type of structures. So ये गांव के लिए बनाया नहीं है, ये टाइगर के लिए बनाया है, जानवरों के लिए बनाया है. तो इसी टाइप के स्ट्रक्चर्स हम अभी समृद्धि हाईवे जो बन रहा है उधर भी हम बनाने वाले हैं. It's a 700 kilometer long stretch, in which 117 kilometers has been identified as wildlife focus areas, and there are a lot of structures which have been planned in that. And these are the mitigation structures which have been made on the National Highway 44, both in the Maharashtra side as well as the MP side. The MP side things are about to be completed, but we have completed about 2 years back, and this is how it looks like. So you have the animals walking below you, and the connectivity is there. The highways have been constructed, although the cost is quite high. But this is what happens. And then you see the animal usage. I've just earlier slide, we had shown you only the pictures of the tiger, but here you see the gaur, the wild dogs, the sloth bear, the cheetal, the wild boar, as well as the tiger. So all animals are now using these underpasses, as they are known as, and this has really helped, and more. So when it comes to you as a person, as a voter, you would say कि यार पहले तो say X amount लग रहा था, अभी 2x लग रहा है highway बनने के लिए. तो 2x इसलिए लग रहा है कि this is what we will have to do to ensure that mitigation also takes place, and at the same time the roads also takes place. Now, has this happened overnight? I mean, this has not happened overnight. Our field staff, our frontline soldiers, as I call them, the guards, the foresters, the RFOs, they have worked day and night to safeguard the tiger or the wild animals and their habitat. They have faced innumerable hardships and difficulties. You would not imagine, if you have not been into a forested area or you have not stayed in a guard's quarters or the protection huts. Some have been killed not only by mostly by people because of the protection that they they have done, but also because of fire or maybe in a poaching instance. About 10 days back, we had a case where one cattle was killed, and our guard had gone to make a panchanama of the cattle, and the tiger was right next, sitting next to it in a bush, which was not being seen. And he pounced upon this guard and took hold of his leg. Fortunately, there were other people around, and they virtually pulled him from the jaws of death. And today he is in hospital. He has to undergo multiple surgery to take care of his, that he walks again. So these are the unsung heroes who have walked for several hundred thousands of miles in difficult terrain for protecting and monitoring our wildlife. And this is, as I said, the army protects our borders, but the interior borders are protected by our frontline staff. And this is just a glimpse of what kind of work they do. And these photos, although may not be very palatable or not very good to see, but this is what happens when they get injured by when removing encroachment, or on the right hand side you see a fire injury, and there are people who have died in doing this. So again, organized poaching, which was there, but due to a very good cyber cell that we have set up, we now have, we had busted international links, and that has led to a reduction in the local level of in the international or organized poaching. And local level poaching cases have been tackled. The Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, the police and other agencies have also been sensitized. The lower judiciary, where most of the cases go, has been repeatedly being sensitized about the gravity of the problem. And we've also resorted to expert legal help. And some modern technology like call data record analysis, DNA technology has been also used effectively. Now, these are the type of people whom you see. They look very simple, but they are very well connected, because somebody at the back end is a very rich person, and who would employ the highest paid lawyer in the area to see that these people get bail immediately, and they are. And these are the kind of tools that they use for trapping the tigers. As I said, the cyber cell was involved and of the forest department, and this led to arrests all over the country, not only in Maharashtra, but they went across the boundaries, and they have really done the fantastic work. And because of which, organized poaching, to a large extent, we are never complacent about anything, and we can't be complacent, because where there are tigers, where there are wild animals, there is a threat. We now have sniffer dogs in 2 or 3 areas, and that has also helped us a lot. Poisoning is a easiest mode of killing animals, because as I told, the tiger would eat over 4 to 5 days. So on the first day when the cattle or a wild animal which is killed is seen, all you need to do is put some thimet over it, which is a pesticide easily available, and the tiger would eat that meat, and then it would die. So that is it. That is how easy it is to kill. What about the people? Are they suffering? Yes, local people are suffering, because a lot of crop damage takes place because of wild animals, and therefore they also have to be taken care of through eco-development measures. Thousands of cattle are predated by the tigers and the leopards. So this is also another, cattle depredation takes place. And fatal attacks. Only yesterday, in fact, we had a case of a tiger killing an individual in Chandrapur district, and it's a big issue there in Chandrapur district. And the villagers often work under the shadow of terror and fear. So it's also, when I give credit to our frontline staff, I also give to the tolerance of the villagers, which is there. You may have seen pictures or videos which become viral, where people are after the animals using sticks and whatever they have in their hands. So fortunately, tolerance levels in Maharashtra are much better. But again, we don't know when that tolerance breaks down, and when our frontline staff is subjected to the brutalities of their wrath. Now, this is the kind of scenes, again, not very palatable. but this is the reality which takes place in the forest, killing by wild animals. Now, we have an issue, like when I said 312 tigers is what we had, but then we had 312 tigers, but out of that, in one district, we have about 160. Now, this is a problem. This is a problem because a lot of tigers in one district, so that is a concentration of animals at one place. So that is an issue which we also are looking at very seriously and probably dispassionately. And if we see the number of tigers being, the humans being killed because of tigers is on the increase in this district. So over the period, the 2020 figures are only up to September. So already in September, we are nearly at 23. So this is an issue which, in fact, after this webinar, we have after this meeting, we have a webinar on human-wildlife conflict where we are going to discuss on this particular issue. Now, why this happens? Now, in one district, you have about 63 breeding females. Now, if we have 63 female tigers in a place, which means that if the tigress breeds, say, every 3 years, so we have 63 addition to the population because it produces about litter size is about 3 to 4. But even if we take 3, it is an addition of 60. So the 160 would have now become 200 or plus 200. So that is, and these areas are not compact. Tadoba, the red dots that you see is a compact area. But the other purple dots that you see are fragmented areas, which means that there is interspersion of forests, there is interspersion of forest, agriculture, human habitation, and open land. So, and in addition, you have the corridor connectivity. So, as I said, we have a large network of protected areas. We have a very good rehabilitation policy. We have a fairly good special tiger protection force. We have a tiger cell and a cyber cell, which is active. We have a conservation friendly policy in the state. Fortunately, the financial support to the forestry sector is still not so good, but in the last few years, we've got good support, financial support, and this has really helped in improving the lot of our management, and we can do more and more habitat interventions, which includes, roti, kapda or makan. So रोटी बढ़ाना है उसके लिए तो आपको ग्रासलैंड निकाल के और ग्रासलैंड्स बढ़ाना है, and then weeds which are there we have to remove. Then the water bodies have to be increased so that the people get everything. Then we have, of course, conservation education, which is a major highlight. Now, what I am doing today is also a part of conservation education. We're trying to bring to the people what the forest department is actually doing, because many times it is not really known. बोलते हैं ना जंगल में मोर नाचा किसने देखा, तो नॉर्मली आप लोग मतलब जनरल परसेप्शन अमंग्स पीपल इज हाँ जंगल है तो सिर्फ टाइगर देखने जाना है बस, बाकी क्या करते हैं, बाकी टूरिज्म थोड़ा बहुत करते हैं, बाकी तो कुछ करते नहीं है, उसलिए दिखाना जरूरी है. और दिस टॉक इज ऑल्सो कंजर्वेशन पार्ट ऑफ कंजर्वेशन एजुकेशन, ऑल्दो वी टारगेट द children quite a lot. And then we have livelihood generation issues which are there, because if we prevent people from going into the forest, accessing forest resources, we have to protect, we have to allow them or make available to them livelihood opportunities. And we are making livelihood opportunities available to the people, local people, and this has helped a lot in gaining the goodwill of the people and also generating livelihood. Then we have the ecotourism portion. Many of you are aware of this. And we are, there is a lot of livelihood generation even because of ecotourism. A lot of guides, a lot of drivers, gypsy drivers, a lot of local resorts, staff which is there, they get employment because of this. And then we have a lot of focus on research, because this is another angle which wildlife research projects in Maharashtra. We have long-term research with the Wildlife Institute of India that we have taken up. And this includes improvement or capacity building of people, of our ground staff, so that conflict issues are handled very soon. Then we had this case of rewilding of the orphaned female club. You must have read about the Avni case where she was killed. She had to be killed because she had killed 13 people. But then she had 2 cubs, of which one has been rewilded now, in the sense that now it has been trained to act like a normal tiger, and soon it should be released in the wild. The other male cub, of course, we could not catch, but it has lived successfully and it is roaming free in the wild already. So these are other things that we have also done. Then we have a transit treatment center at various places where we take care of the rescue of animals which are injured. And therefore, it's not only the forest department, there is a role of judiciary, there is civil society, there is media, and there are researchers. So it's all a combination of everything. And fortunately, in Maharashtra, we have a very good networking of NGOs, and there are very good NGOs which contribute very positively in wildlife conservation. And because of the media and the NGOs, we do have good success in these areas. So as research and so are we complacent? No, we are not. We can't afford to be complacent because wherever there is wildlife, there is a lurking threat. And therefore, the enemy is never behind, as they say, and we have to be very careful. And therefore, while we go ahead, we are going to do all these things, and we are taking care of coexistence. How do we look at coexistence and better management inputs for lesser known wildlife? Like this whole wildlife week was focused on lesser known species. And as our Prime Minister had said, tiger conservation is not a choice, but an imperative. And this is what gives us strength that there is willingness at the political level also. So thank you very much. I was given 45 minutes and I think I've done it in 45.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was simply superb, and we got a lot of information and something amazing. So thank you very much for moderating the question answer session. I invite Rotarian Sanjay Merchant. Over to Sanjay.
Yeah. Anybody has a question, please? Prerna has a question. Prerna, you can start.
Yeah. Thank you very much for such an informative talk. I don't think we'd have got to know any of this without you enlightening us. So my question is, the youth today need to be made a little aware of all that is happening. Do you have any programs or any short courses where the youth can get involved? Because they are the tomorrow of the nation. I mean, probably not even the youth. Someone like me would also probably want to enroll for a program. Probably a 1 month course, a 2 month course, something where we can actually get involved to understand the ground root level.
This is what we call as outreach, and we do have a lot of NGOs which do a lot of trips in Pune itself. I can tell you to get in touch. One is with the Bharatiya Vidyapit. Bharatiya Vidyapit has a environmental division which does take care of these things. As well as there are private operators like Mr. Anuj Khare of Nature Walk. There is an institution or an organization called Nature Walk, and he takes care of these things exactly where the youth, if they are interested, they are taken out for a nature camp, which is roughly about 3 to 4 days in various parts of the country. And there they are exposed to these things. We also have these programs for the rural children where we call it Nisarga Anubhav. So Nisarga Anubhav is a program for the youth, as you must have seen some of the pictures, where we do camps for the rural masses, because we feel that we should concentrate more on them rather than the urban masses, because the urban masses have the ways and means to get exposed to why nature is important, and they could get into ecotourism. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nitinji, one more thing. You showed the flamingos and all which were there. How much is accessible? Like Kenya and all, we can go easily and see. But over here, how much is accessible? Can we go down over there? And what is the season, all that?
Yeah, you can certainly visit, if you can visit the website of the Mangrove Cell, MANGROVECELL of Maharashtra. There is a center in Airoli. As you cross Mulund into New Bombay, there is a center which is called the Coastal Biodiversity Center. Even if you Google Coastal Biodiversity Center Airoli, you would be able to know as to when the, because this depends on the tides. So if you have to go slightly inside into a boat, there is a boat available for the layman, for people who can go inside, have a look at the, not only flamingos, but the other birds also. So you can certainly visit this website, and I'm sure that you will get information on that. And it is open for people. So you can visit and you can have a look at the flamingos.
Right. Thank you. Umesh, you have a question?
Yeah. Good morning, Nitinji.
Good morning, sir.
You have elaborated very well the wildlife management. I wanted to know that when you talk about number of tigers as 312, how do you actually carry out the census of the tigers? So can you throw some light on that? And the another question is that you have talked about passage of the tigers across the national highways and all that. So I could not pick up the objective of planning for their passage through the national highway, across the national highway.
Thank you, Mr. Jalan. I would answer you very briefly because I know that both these topics deserve about 40 minutes each. But the tiger estimation, when we say 312, it is not actually 312, it's a range. And the average is 312. So because it's not like even people, I think it's very difficult to point out कि इतने करोड़ लोग हैं. So just like we say 130 करोड़ लोग हैं. So this is also a range. It is range between, say, at a lower end, maybe a 280 to the higher end to 330. So 312 comes from there. Now, how do we do it? Now, over a period of time, there have been a lot of refinements in the technique of estimation of tigers. So I don't call it census, I call it estimation. Wherein a lot of, initially most of it was indirect evidences like the pug marks, and the pug marks of the tigers are different. Each tiger has a different pug mark, that is what was said. But then it became difficult because the substrate is different, so it is difficult to really find out. But now we are relying more and more on, apart from pug marks and other indirect evidences, we depend more on camera trap images. And camera trap images give you the stripe pattern. Now the stripe pattern of a tiger in a certain area is different. So from the stripe pattern, the right flank and the left flank, we have an idea as to how many tigers are there. To give you a very short answer again, out of the 2,967 tigers that have been estimated in the country, there is a record, there is a photographic record of about 2,400 individual tigers. So that is 100% sure that 2,400 to pakke hain. And the others have been, जैसे किसी एरिया में बाकी कुछ नहीं मिला लेकिन टाइगर का एक पगमार्क मिला, तो वहाँ एक टाइगर तो है पक्का. So it is counted like that. So in that way, there are various ways in which to estimate. It's a very complex science, but it is fairly accurate. So now when we say there are about 2,967 tigers in the country, we are sure that it would be plus minus maximum 5% of that. And the second question was, why should we have mitigation measures at all? As I explained, that if there are two forest areas, then and they are separated, or there is a linear infrastructure like a road cutting across the forest area, then how do you see that these are not fragmented? नहीं तो दो टुकड़े हो जाएंगे, यहाँ के जानवर यहाँ रह जाएंगे, वहाँ के जानवर वहाँ रह जाएंगे. तो उन दोनों को कनेक्ट करने के लिए these are the mitigation measures that are planned, so that they are also safe, the area remains compact, the block remains safeguarded, and at the same time the roads also or the canals also take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitinji. Colonel Saab, over back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Nitinji, it's lovely. In fact, we got a lot of information, and we are already short of time, so not going further. I am inviting Rotarian Aditya Mishra to extend formal vote of thanks. So over to Aditya.
Thank you, Colonel President. Thank you, Nitin sir. I think, as everyone mentioned, it was a complete package as far as understanding of wildlife management is considered. And it was quite a bit of information, and being in Maharashtra for last 10-15 years, I myself don't know which is our state bird, which I came to know today. So these small information really make difference. And also, thanks for introducing some of the concept like corridors. For us, the corridors mean different, but wildlife management, what corridor means, your nocturnal, connectivity. You talked about some of these mitigation, strategy like passage. I think everything all put together, and it was quite informative. And I think what I would suggest, or maybe I'll take this platform to to discuss among ourselves that how as a Rotary we should connect with these kind of initiative. There are quite a NGO is already active, as you mentioned.
If I can
but,
just intervene, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to give a bit of information of what Rotary here is doing. Now, there is a Rotary Club of South Nagpur, and last 27 years now, Dr. Madan Kapre is a Rotarian, and they have been holding surgical camps in Melghat Tiger Reserve for the last 27 years, where for about a week, their doctors, all doctors and all equipment goes from Nagpur, and then they camp there and they conduct all these surgical camps there. There are not only doctors, but there are other support staff. There are other Rotarians who help for catering, who help for logistics, and they have been doing an excellent work. And what this does to us is it generates goodwill amongst the tribals for us. So it's an excellent example of what Rotary can really do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nitin. It was heartening to know that, and probably we will also take some opportunity to touch base with you and take this forward. So thank you once again for coming and briefing us about wildlife management.
Thank you.
Over to Kanal.
It's been a pleasure on my side.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya. Now this thought of the week is the tradition of Rotary Club Pune Riverside. So for doing this honor, I would like to invite Rotarian Prerna Gaikwad, Secretary, Rotary Club Pune Riverside. Over to Prerna Gaikwad.
Thank you, Colonel. Something on the lines of what we've heard today from Nitinji. The most dangerous worldview is the worldview of those who have not viewed the world. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Very well said. Likewise, this joke of the week is also one of the healthy tradition. So for doing this honor, I would like to invite Rotarian Sandeep Bash. Over to Sandeep.
Good morning, Colonel Sahab, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for giving me this honor. तो एक वाइल्ड लाइफ से मुझे याद आ गया, एक छोटा बच्चा अपने बाबा जी के पास जाता है. बाबा जी की उम्र है 100 साल. बाबा जी वो टाइम बताओ जब आपको सबसे ज्यादा डर लगा था. तो बाबा जी बोलते हैं कि यार जब मैं यंग था ना तो एक बारी हम सफारी के लिए गए थे, मैं, मेरा दोस्त और हमारा गाइड. और गाइड ने बोला कि देखो अगर कुछ भी हो जाए ना तो कुछ प्रोवोकेशन मत करना, चुपचाप जो है कैंप में वापस चले जाना. तो बोला थोड़ी देर में वो गाइड जो है वो मिसप्लेस हो गया. अब मैं और मेरा दोस्त, और थोड़ी देर के बाद सिर्फ मैं बचा, दोस्त भी गायब हो गए. जब मैं वापस आ रहा था तो रास्ते में आवाज आई फर, और फिर मेरे दोस्त के चीखने की आवाज आई, फिर सब कुछ शांत. तो मैं समझ गया कि दोस्त तो गया भाई. थोड़ी देर के बाद पता लगा आवाज आई फिर से फर, फिर गाइड के चीखने की आवाज आई और उसके बाद शांत. अब मुझे पता लगा कि अभी मैं अकेला बचा हूँ. इतनी देर में आवाज आई फर एंड आई शैट इन माय पैंट्स. तो बच्चा बोला कि दादाजी अगर ऐसा किसी के साथ होगा तो उसके साथ भी होगा. बोला नहीं नहीं तब नहीं, अभी व्हेन आई वाज ट्राइंग टू डू फर, वो निकल गया.
Thank you very much. So in fact, Nitinji has to attend another webinar at 10 o'clock. So not taking much time, I am going to declare the meeting adjourned. And before that, in fact, I am reminding you and requesting you all, Wednesday, 14th October, please participate on a very good talk by General Amil Kumar Sori. The talk is Conflict Management Lessons from Panchatantra. So again, once again, thanking Nitinji, Paragji and Selkeji and our all members. I would like to have your permission to end the meeting. Have I that?
Sure, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Nitinji, we would like to come to Tadoba for, we will plan Riverside trip. So I would like to talk to you later on that part. So
Sure,
thank you very much being with us. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.